Hey, what's up, everybody? You are tuned in for another episode of Fatherhood is Dope, the podcast. I'm your guy, Aaron McGee. And listen, we are like knee deep in season 1, so I'm beyond excited that you continue to show up to rock with us. You know, the platform is all about celebrating men who have answered the call to fatherhood. And I have the distinct pleasure of bringing to you a friend of mine, a mentor of mine, Mr. Marcus Whitney. What's up, Marcus?
My guy, what's good?
Man, all is well. I'm so glad that you actually decided to sit down and have this conversation with me. I'll take this moment to kind of set the scene as to how you and I really even encounter. And the shortest version is basically everywhere I went around the city of Nashville, people kept telling me, you need to connect with Marcus, you need to connect with Marcus. And generally when people say that, those are the type of people that you really maybe you should connect with, but if everybody's telling you should connect with that person, they generally don't have the bandwidth to connect because everybody's trying to connect. But to my surprise, I actually reached out to you, Marcus, and Marcus responded and really just took it to the next level, because for the next pretty much, you really said a year, but we tipped over to a year and a half, man. I had a standing meeting on your calendar where you set an hour aside faithfully and intentionally to pour into me as a young executive. I was just starting a new role as an executive director, and Marcus just laid out the red carpet for me, and I'm forever indebted to you for that. Man,
my pleasure.
Yeah, I will say also, man, you during that time you kind of delivered let's just say you delivered some information that was forcing me to grow up real fast. And I said, I was thinking to myself, Marcus, I'm not where you are yet. Give me some time, man. All right, but we're here today, man, we're going to talk about a lot of things. There's several things that I want to cover with you, but at the end of the day, we're on this platform because you have been in the fatherhood game for roughly almost 20 years.
Almost 20 years, yeah.
Almost 20 years.
Yeah, it'll be 20 years in 3 weeks.
3 weeks?
So, yeah.
Okay, so somebody has a birthday coming up.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
All right, so give me the dynamics of your children, man.
Yeah, so I've got 2 boys. They're almost 2 years apart to the day, just a week in between their birthdays, both born in April. The oldest is a newly minted United States Marine.
Yeah.
And the youngest is a senior in high school, goes to John Overton. And, they're both great people.
Sweet deal, man. Well, you talked about your son is a newly minted Marine, and so we're going to get to that because I'm interested in you sharing your perspective on what that was like for you all to witness that process with him. Let's just take a step back, man. I mean, what is it like having 2 teenage boys, sons? Because I remember what I was like as both a senior in high school and your oldest son is 19.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what is it like for you? Because I consider you, you're still a young parent in so many aspects in terms of your age and just what your trajectory is in so many levels. So how do you balance that with everything that you have going on, raising 2 teenagers?
Yeah, so when my children came into my life, I was, as you might expect, in a very different phase of my life. I was, I think I could say with some perspective now, I was very self-indulgent, you know what I mean? And I think it was pretty age appropriate, you know what I mean? I didn't have any responsibilities. And so I was just out there exploring the world, and making a lot of mistakes quickly, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And then once they came into my life, it was, it's just, obvious. I now have to grow up, right? And I have to grow up pretty quickly. And I have to change my perspective to not being self-centered, but being, but living for them, at least for a window of time. I'm going to have to live for them.
Yeah.
And I think that's what forced me to start making some real decisions around how I was going to be successful as a professional. And so, I think I thought about that prior to them coming into my life, but not with the same seriousness.
That's when they actually got
here.
As
when they got here, right, exactly. Because it didn't take long for me to understand they cost money. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, lots of it.
So money became a real thing for me. And Yeah, they are largely responsible for who I am today, but just because of that, speeding up that maturation process.
All right, so let's just for some context, or context, I should say. Let's just take one more step back and kind of, if you're willing to, kind of share like the dynamics of like your contributions. My word choice to like your career here in the Nashville landscape, because I consider you as a high capacity leader who somehow, I don't know how you still making time for me with all that you have going on.
There's a lot of time.
Okay, yeah, but you manage it responsibly. So just can you share just a little bit about like your career and what it is that you do?
Yeah. So my background is when my children were coming around, I did not have a real career path. I had previously dropped out of architecture school at the University of Virginia, and I didn't finish college, and so I was waiting tables and doing hip hop music. That was what I was doing when they came into the world, and so that is not a real clear path to money. Either one of those things.
Pause. Like, so were you rapping?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
You still have any of those skill sets?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Oh, okay. You still
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
Okay, so we may get something at the end of this.
Yeah. I'm good. I'm good whenever.
Hey, I love to hear it. Go for
Yeah.
it.
So but that wasn't. I knew it wasn't viable. You know what I'm saying? And so trying to think as quickly as I possibly could. What can I do without the credential of a college degree that can, be, effectively a quantum leap and put me in a position where I can very quickly start to prepare them for a great life. Yeah. And what I chose was computer science. Getting into programming, web programming specifically, and teaching myself. So going to Borders, buying books, and then when I wasn't, working at the restaurants, at home, teaching myself how to code, running through the examples in the books. I eventually started venturing out into the world of programmers here in Nashville. There's a thing in the programming world called user groups, and it's basically it's like an affinity group. It's like, a group of people who like a particular software package or like a particular programming language, and they get together and literally they have pizza and beer and they show off things that they like playing with, and so and they're free, right? You know what I'm saying? It's just for the spirit of camaraderie and teaching and learning, and so those were free environments for me to go and both network and learn. You know what I'm saying? And so once I found out those existed, I started going to those religiously, and the combination of just diligently teaching myself and then going to those user groups outside of my work time. Landed me my first programming job the day after my second son was born. Wow. In 2001. I started as a junior content programmer for HealthStream here in town. And so from there, I basically spent 7 years actively as a programmer. My last job where I was actually writing code was with Emma. It's an email marketing company here in town. So I was their fifth employee and chief architect of their software during, I think, the most formative years of that company. And then left from there in 2007 and basically started my entrepreneurial journey in earnest in 2007 when I left Emma.
Well, just real quick. So how does coding even come on your radar? Because we're talking at this point, maybe 20 years ago. Where it wasn't mainstream like it is now, with girls who code, guys who code, women who code, all of the affinity groups that are started now. So
there were no social networks.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So how does coding? Are you just looking in the yellow pages? What?
Yeah, it was a very different thing, right? So the background for me was, this is where family and how you were raised sort of helps, right? So. A couple things. One, when I was in grade school, we're talking first, second, third grade, I was in a gifted program, and all the parents in that program made sure that all the kids had access to a computer. And back then, we're talking about Texas Instrument 99, you know what I'm saying, which was a little bit better than a calculator. Yeah. But it was a computer, you know what I'm saying? You could program, you could play Space Invaders on it. So when I was young, I had access to that. And then my uncle was a programmer. He was a programmer at IBM in upstate New York. And so through him, I got an IBM PC Junior and learned how to program BASIC. So when I was very, 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 very young, I had access to computers and I programmed on those computers. And so, it's like anything that happens when you're young, you can recall those things later on in life. And I was just fortunate enough to have had that opportunity. That's credit to my family, credit to my mother and my uncle.
Sweet deal. Well, man, I can't hear that without like immediately coming back. So you were raised in New York.
Yeah, raised in Brooklyn, New York.
Raised in Brooklyn, New York. So you said a credit to your mother and your uncle. So what's your uncle like? The father figure in your life?
No, I have a father.
Okay, your dad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I have a dad.
Okay, but so was that more so because your uncle was like into?
He was the programmer.
Space?
He was the programmer. Yeah, my dad gave me. I would say my dad is the person who set the example for me in terms of work ethic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, I can never, having watched how hard he worked. So he was a correctional officer at Rikers Island. Mm-hmm. Okay. And, like, I don't know if you know, what that means, but that's a hard job.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So he did that. He retired from that job, and then he went and worked in the post office. Like, all he did was hard jobs.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? He left home 17, 18 years old in New Bern, North Carolina, and entered the Army. And he was born in the late 30s, man. So, you know what I'm saying? You just think about America and where it was for a black man entering the military at that time. And, in one way, it was incredible because he got to go see the world. You know what I'm saying? He entered the Army, around the time when the Korean War was happening. So he was stationed in Germany, and, he got to get a world view. When he came back, he couldn't go back to the South, so he went to New York.
Wow.
And worked civil servant jobs his whole life, man. And when he wasn't doing that stuff, he would be working construction. So he was a 2-job working kind of guy too. He worked night shifts, he slept during the days, but still was able to wake up on the weekends and coach me in soccer.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? When I was 5, 6, 7 years old. So he was there.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? But he worked nights and he worked hard and he worked long hours. And so I never felt like, where's Dad? I knew where Dad was. You know what I'm saying? He was working. You know what I'm saying? So I always had that experience and that example of him as as someone who worked. And I was never homeless a day in my life. Mm-hmm. I never missed a meal a day in my life. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, those things, those were not my reality. And we weren't rich.
Yeah.
We weren't rich. But my parents worked hard. You know what I'm saying? They worked really, 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 really hard. So
I mean, you said a lot just in that piece, and thank you for taking that moment to like even honor your dad and acknowledge his contributions. But I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge like the little nuance even in that exchange. So, do you find that let me just ask.
Ask the question.
Do you find that as a black man, you like have to like make it known that, hey, I had a dad growing up? Because
I mean, so no,
let me set it up. Let me set it up because even amongst my peers, like people who I went to high school with, my mom was more involved in some of the after school activities that I did because of my dad's work schedule, and I made it all the way through high school, and folks are like, You have a dad? And I'm like, yeah, I've grown up with my dad all my life in my house. In my house.
Yeah.
So, and because I know that a lot of the things that make it to mainstream, and I work even in a environment where, we're serving at-risk youth, and a majority of them don't have their fathers intact in their life. And so I just wonder, like, sometimes is it because of my outward appearance that, there's a thought that, hey, maybe Aaron didn't grow up with a father?
Yeah. Man, I totally understand that. I was raised I'm learning more as I get older. I was raised in a very particular way that I don't want to say sheltered me from those types of things, because I wasn't sheltered from them. I was completely aware of those types of stereotypes, and it's not that they never like came into my life, but I just had a real. I was given by my parents a really strong internal sense of who I was and what my reality was, in such a way that I didn't have to. I didn't feel like I had to compensate or like over communicate things like that. If that makes sense.
It makes sense to me.
I just never had that feeling that I needed to do that. You know what I mean? They instilled in me what my rules of life are in terms of ethics and in terms of manners and in terms of, you know, a lot of things, man. You know what I'm saying?
So it's like this sense of self-assurance.
Yeah. Just I have a very particular sense of clarity on what my values are and how I live my life. You know what I'm saying? And you know, my parents.
That's evident in what I know about you too.
My parents moved down to Nashville 11 years ago, and you know, it's been great to have them around me and for them to be able to, you know, experience, you know, both their grandchildren growing up and also seeing, you know, this last 10-year window for me, which, you know, I hope they can feel proud of, because this, you know, my 20s were pretty hard, you know what I'm saying? And I feel like, you know, my mid 30s into my 40s have been, not that they've been easy, but there have been successes, and, you know, they're largely due to sort of how they raised me. So,
yeah. You know, what's interesting about that is that I always wonder how much a father can impact us in different seasons of our lives. And so your dad is still around.
Still around.
Still, okay. And so you just said you eased into your early 40s.
Yeah.
You have 2 teenage sons.
Yes.
One who is the United States Marine.
Yes.
And so, like, do you still see the impact or influence of your dad? And if so, like, how does that transfer down to your sons?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think, you know, well, first of all, my dad was in my sons' lives, and you know, that is, it's tremendous. Like we were able to raise them in a 3-generation manner, which is like super cool, and something I got to experience, but not really with the males. You know what I'm saying? My both of my grandmothers were alive. My dad's mother lived in North Carolina, so I didn't have as much access to her, but still revered her, and she was influential in my life. My mother's mother effectively raised me because my mom was also a heavy duty worker. You know what I'm saying? She worked in Manhattan, and you know, I went to school in Brooklyn. Anyone who knows, like, that's not close. And so when you get out of school at 3:00, who's going to take care of you? And for many years, really up until she passed away, it was my grandmother.
Wow.
And so you know, I had that 3-generational you know, rearing as well, and was really important for me. And so I would say in that way, it's been great. You know what I'm saying? Just for them to see, you know, for them to see and get to know their grandfather. I think that's important. You know, I think there are things that I have gone through that have been very difficult. I went through a divorce. It was really great to have my father there for that. He had been through previous, you know, relationships. My mother is not his first wife, and so, you know, just to kind of have him there to offer me some perspective and around that was really special. Yeah, man, it's you know, and now you know, they're in their 80s, and you know, they still can do for themselves, but we are definitely shifting into their second childhood, and I am definitely the responsible child. And you know, I am very active in what's going on with their healthcare. You know what I'm saying? And things of that nature. And so just that opportunity for me to participate in their life at this stage of their life in this way, you know, helping them to manage their estate and things of that nature is you know, is also really a blessing and an honor.
Man, yeah, I'm enriched by, I'm in the moment right now, so I'm enriched by what I just heard you say, particularly even around the second childhood of your parents, and you've been able to honor them in such a way in this phase in their lives, and then to just understand the impact that they've had on you. But you make note that both your mom and your dad, they were heavy workers, and then what I know about you, like, it's, I don't know your day-to-day, but what I know you have your hand on, it's impossible for you to have your hand on those type of things without having a pretty robust work schedule. And so I want to kind of transition into that whole work-life balance, because I read in your newsletter, you even as it relates to your children, you talked about, you know, you've worked almost 70% of weekends over the past 19 years. And so how do you strike that balance where, yes, you talked about money being important because it's a resource to provide, to take care, but how are you striking a balance to say, this is how I'm still remaining active, so that I don't just have this transactional relationship with my kids.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of things to that. So one, here is one thing that we talked about sort of the issue with feeling like you need to communicate to people that you have a dad, right? And I said, I'm not really subject to a lot of those things. There is one thing that I am subject to around that, in terms of being a black person. I won't even say just being a black man. I'll say being a black person, right? And that is that I do have to outwork people who are not black. That is my, that's in there. That's in there for sure. And so I think I established an example for my boys that isn't resonating with them right this moment, but once they really get into the world and they understand the competition is real, I think they're going to be like, damn, that's why dad was working like that. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's one very real thing, for me. I was really pretty engaged with the kids. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I mean, I was here. I didn't miss a lot of things. There was a 4-year window where I was part of a company that was opening offices in Boston and San Francisco, and that was difficult because I spent about half my time away, on planes, and that was the most difficult period in terms of me being a father. Just very, very difficult to be away as much as I was. But we're talking about 4 years over the span of 20, and for the vast majority of that time, I was around. I would go to all the all the important events, Cub Scouts. Over the last 4 years, my youngest son and I have been doing martial arts together. You know what I'm saying, 3 times a week. We got our black belts together. I took both my boys on their college tours, and like, not like with the females in their life, like I did it. You know what I'm saying? And that's no knock on anyone else in their life, but like, I did a lot of things, just me. You know what I'm saying, with the boys. Really just because I just had my own feelings on standards and what they deserved, and I put those things together. You know what I'm saying? So, and again, that's like, I'm not like there's a bunch of stuff that the women in their life do, you know what I'm saying, their mother, their stepmother,
this is
their
grandmother, is dope.
Right, exactly. There's a bunch of stuff that those people do in their lives that I don't do, that I don't even think about doing. You know what I'm saying?
Of course.
But man, I'm really like, I'm a force in their life. You know what I'm saying? Like,
so dad has his imprint in their life, and they know.
I'm a force, man. You know what I mean? But just on the back of that, the thing you were saying, like the work thing. Dog, I like to work, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, I like to work, and the reason why I like to work is because I like to win. The reason I like to win is because, like, I don't want to say I was born this way, but I do think it was instilled in me from my family and how I was raised, man, that like, I'm supposed to be a winner. I'm supposed to be a champion. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not gonna get that. Like I have to earn that. But it's absolutely within my destiny and my potential to be that. And so working just feels like me being an authentic expression of who I am. I like to work. Honestly, man, you know what I'm saying? It's like, even we were talking about the setup here and the shooting, and you were like, I know if it's Marcus, he's going to be doing the research.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I like to win.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And I know that about you.
I like to win.
I know that about you. Man, I've been following you. I keep up with you on social media, and I didn't realize it's been like 4 years now. But you talked about, you and your son doing martial arts together and you getting your black belt. So talk a little bit about that experience, because according to Instagram, man, I was joking earlier that you've been turning up. I don't see you flip over folks, jump and kick and break wood and like all type of dynamic stuff that I'm like, man, maybe I should try this out. Yeah. So what's that been like for you?
It's been incredible, man. I mean, the best thing that's come out of it is just, the committed time that my son and I put in together, and the idea that we both started as white belts together. You know what I'm saying? And so that's
got to be powerful.
Yeah, I mean, for your entire life as you're raising kids, you're always one up on them with the experience thing. You know what I'm saying? And that can kind of create a weird dynamic, especially in the teenage years. So this was a really nice level playing
Yep,
field where
yep.
we got to be more peers and friends, and sort of begin to transition into what our long-term relationship is going to be more like. You know what I mean? So that was really cool. You know, and look, you know, we did it for him because you know, we believed it was going to be important for him. We thought, you know, he needed a system that would, you know, develop self-confidence, discipline, you know, motor control, you know what I'm saying? Because he wasn't playing any team sports at the time. And so, you know, it was like, this is something he should do. But, you know, I didn't feel comfortable or confident about just like paying for him to do it and then like dropping him off. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was like, I kind of need to, like, if I'm going to, because it was a mandate. I didn't make it an option for him. I said, you are going to do this. I signed him up. I signed me up, and I was like, here's your uniform. We're going to do this.
Wow.
And, you know, he was cool with it, but I think within, you know, the first 60 days, like, he really started to like it. Yeah. And you know, turns out he's naturally good at it. Wow. You know what I'm saying? Which has been great. So there's a bunch of stuff he can do that I cannot do as well.
Yeah. That's pretty cool, man. You know, in your newsletter, I gauged a few things. I mean, because you talked about, what's your oldest son's name?
Tristan.
You talked about Tristan with like such great pride. And so you have martial arts with your youngest son.
Kearn. Yep. Kearn.
Yep. You have martial arts with him, and then, you know, Tristan has just become a United States Marine. Yeah. And so, you know, I'm kind of trying to figure out like what perspective at this point because now you got an experience that you've had with your son, and now you have a son who has an experience that you don't necessarily have.
Yes, that's right.
And so, how do those dynamics change now as they really transition into manhood?
Yeah, I mean, it's changing the dynamics of our entire family. It's definitely changing my life. You know, I am very close to being an empty nester. Yeah. And my oldest son becoming a Marine really punctuated that. You know what I'm saying? Yep. Like, because that is a, you know, look, that's a very real leaving the nest decision. You know what I'm saying? He is going to be a man. He is off the payroll. He is. You know, I'm not going to see that much of him for the next 5 years, and maybe more, depending on whether or not he decides to extend his career, you know, in the armed forces, and that's that. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And he made that decision. You know what I mean? And so, and it's an honorable decision. And so, yeah, it was a very, very big change. It was actually experiencing the graduation at Parris Island was more transformational than I thought it was going to be, because he was more transformed than I could have imagined he was going to be in a 13-week window. And people tell you this, but like you can't imagine it until you see it. Like when you see it, and then you're like, it's him, and you didn't get to speak to him during that time. You know what I'm saying? Huh?
And you didn't get to speak to him during that time.
No, you don't really. No. I mean, the way that it works is basically it's a 13-week process. And for the first 11 weeks, absolutely not. You do not get to speak to them at all. Yeah. You know, it's writing letters back and forth, but they're very disconnected with the outside world. And at the end of 11 weeks, they go through, you know, it could be the 12th week. I mean, I'm not an expert on this, but they go through a multi-day rite of passage called the Crucible. And when they complete the Crucible successfully, and it's all about them doing it as a team. When they complete the Crucible successfully, then they pass over from being a recruit to a Marine. Prior to that, they're not a Marine. They're a recruit. And so, you know, after the Crucible, then they become a Marine. Then they start to get more liberty, right? Yeah. Liberty means they can call you. Yeah. They can rent a phone, you know, and like call you and things like that. But prior to that, nah, man, they're in boot and they just are owned by the drill instructors. You know what I mean?
Every time you say a crucible, I cringed a little bit because I know what a crucible is and what its purpose is.
It is what it sounds like. Yeah. Make no mistake, man.
It's supposed to, you know, it's a tool used to literally like purify gold. And it's one of the hottest places on earth. that you could go into.
Look,
a lot of pressure.
And that's, you said he has done something that I haven't done. And, the list of things I've done that he hasn't done is long.
Yeah.
But he has started the process of doing things that I haven't done. He started that process.
He started his own list.
Yeah, he started his own list.
That's
you know
an
what I mean?
extension
And that is, that's the thing, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the thing.
Yeah. Are you proud?
Ah, dude, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, man. I mean, I think deep down you're always proud, but the teenage years, let's just keep it real. You're not there yet, but the teenage years are rough, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Trust me, I know.
Yeah, they're rough, man. Some parents get away with some luck as far as that's concerned, but there's just a lot of stuff going on there. Hormones and social interactions and insecurity and it's a lot. It's a lot happening to a young person during their teenage years, and so it's difficult. And I think it's equally difficult for the parents because it is demonstrably different from everything that leads up to the teenage years. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? In all the ways you might imagine. Yeah. I mean, the likelihood that they're going to potentially, experiment with controlled substances or sex, or let's just go right to the edge, right? You know what I'm saying? Or get into some real trouble. That stuff really, for the most part, doesn't kick in until teenage years. Yeah. And then it does. You know what I mean? And then you're like dealing with all that stuff, and we don't have great rites of passage anymore, right? You know what I mean, to sort of create some structure around that. Yeah. We don't really have that anymore. We don't have great grooming for parents when that comes. So yeah, I think it can be hard. Yeah, it can be hard.
Yeah, you touched on a lot in that, man. I mean, that's something that I've thought about as a young father as well. I have a daughter right now, but even for daughters and just as well for sons, even the whole rites of passage. Yeah. Because, more often than not, if we don't create those type of environments, then, thankfully for you that your son has such an honorable rites of passage as the United States Marine. But, right. There are other ways that are not so healthy, right, for us to have rites of passages, and it becomes our identity. And the short version of it is that we just become an unproductive citizen, and we take more than we contribute. And that's so, right. Yeah, that's pretty honorable. So, I mean, I'm excited for you too.
Yeah. Just on that note, not in the same significant way, but I was equally proud of my youngest son when he accomplished his black belt,
of course,
and I would put that as a rite of passage for him, right? Because now when he walks into the martial arts school, he's a leader.
Yes,
he has to show other people through his example, the proper way to do things, and how to properly greet the master, and he may be called up front to do stretches or to do calisthenics, and so there was a rite of passage there as well, to actually get your black belt. What we did is it's like a 3+ hour test. And the first hour is all calisthenics, so you're completely exhausted by the end. You have to do like 1,000 jumping jacks and 200 push-ups and 100 sit-ups or whatever. So like when you're done with that, you're completely exhausted, and then you have to go through and do all your forms. Like starting from the white belt sort of all the way up. Then you have to use the weapons. And for the first down of black belt in Hapkido, the weapon is sword. Yeah. So you have to use your sword and do the various things, and then you have to do your breaks. Sort of after all that stuff. And so it's a pretty exhausting process, and there's not really much that prepares you for it. You know what I mean? And so you do have to sort of push through that. And so for him, like I said, it's not on the same scale as completing U.S. Marines boot camp. It's not, but it was something that we sought out. I didn't know it intentionally when we started the process, but when he crossed over and he became a black belt, I realized we had at least identified a rite of passage for him. You know what I mean? And he'll always know, He's a black belt, and that comes with certain responsibilities and you know, in terms of how he carries himself.
And just for the record, you also received your black belt.
Yeah, we both
it together.
Did. We both got our black belt the same day.
Listen,
he was fine the next day, and I was like my hand swole up to twice the size.
Oh no,
like
man.
like literally, I wasn't able to do boxing class. I was do boxing class too. I wasn't able to do boxing class for like a month and a half.
Yeah,
because the first punch that I did was a Superman punch through a piece of wood, and I didn't feel it at all that day. And the next day, my middle knuckle was like 3 times the size. Obviously, I didn't punch it correctly.
Yeah,
I broke it, but I didn't do it correctly.
Well, for the record, to a novice like me, it looked real good on Instagram.
Yeah,
man. I was like, Marcus
looked good, wasn't right.
Is out here killing it. well, let me just underscore that before we start to wrap here. Just for the listeners, honestly, man, you know, particularly the fathers. You know, it's like I need to write a note to self that make sure that I do something intentional, you know, within the house before you send your kids out.
Yeah.
Because the world will teach them. But, you know, having opportunities like that, you know, whether it's martial arts, and I'm sure there are a myriad of other things that we can do to create our own sense of, you know, the rites of passage to say, hey, son, daughter, I'm turning you over to the world. And, you know, what I always tell young people, it's nothing that the world won't teach you in 5 years. It's not one lesson you can't learn. So I'm really glad that you had the type of opportunity to, you know, with both of your sons to experience one thing with one and to witness another with your oldest. As we wrap it up, man, you know, like you said, you're about to be an empty nester. So what's next for Dad?
Yeah, so you know, I'm in the process of figuring that out, honestly, and discovering that, you know.
Does the Marcus Whitney universe have anything to do with that discovery?
Yeah, it's you know, it's a palette, right? You know what I mean? It's giving me a space to explore, to have a conversation, to, you know, for anyone who doesn't know, if you're listening, Marcus Whitney's universe is not just like a, you know, it's not just a title. It's my content platform that I'm building, just like Aaron is building Fatherhood is Dope. And you know, I'm writing a weekly newsletter. I'm creating these podcasts on a regular basis. I'm looking to get much more active in public speaking. You know, but I still have these companies that I'm you know, I'm leading and having a great time leading, and still need to grow and still need to develop. So I'm still doing that. But I'm gonna have a lot more time on my hands. I'm gonna have a lot more freedom. There's no question about that.
Yep.
And you know, what am I going to do to fill that time? I haven't really, you know, I haven't, you know, it's an interesting thing that happens with time. I wrote it in a recent newsletter. But one of the things that really happens as you get older, and you talked about, you know, how do you get all these things done? You know, when you get older, if you're disciplined, you really get good at time.
Yeah.
I mean, you get really good with time. And so, you know, the idea that even though I have, you know, I'm going to die one day, and so, like, you know, the point between this breath I'm taking and my eventual last breath continues to get shorter. Yeah. It's at the same time, it's also expanding. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Things are moving a little slower. I see things more clearly. I'm able to fit more things in the same window of time that I you know, almost twice as much in the window of time that before I could only get, you know, one time as much done. And so the idea that now I'm going to have, you know, extra space, you know what I mean, is crazy, and I haven't really figured that out yet. You know, I think one of the things, you know, I'm having a conversation with myself. I think one of the things that I'm really gonna, you know, resolve to do is spend more time with my parents. Yeah. Because certainly their time on this earth is not getting longer, right? And I think, you know, I want to be much more intentional about that. I think I've spent a reasonable amount of time with them, but I've definitely favored spending time with the kids over my parents. And I think I'm going to have more time to spend time with them. Yeah, you know, more time on my health and hopefully some travel. But honestly, man, I'm figuring it out. I don't have the answer, but I'll tell you this: I don't think it's going to result in a crisis.
No.
You know, some people will say things like, you know, aren't you going to miss your kids? You know, blah blah blah, whatever. And I don't know, man. I really feel like I did the best I could do.
Yeah.
and nature has a way of saying it's time.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's time.
Yeah.
And it's time for them. It's time for me.
Yep.
It's time. You know what I mean? And we'll always have that relationship. I'll always be dad, but the relationship is different now.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They're going off to become men,
mm-hmm.
and they have to do that on their own. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They can't do that on my lap.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, no, I don't feel the least bit of like midlife crisis or anything like that. I mean, just from a work perspective, I see so many things.
You hadn't even hit midlife yet.
Yeah. But I know. But you get what I'm saying? Like I'm not like nothing about it feels. You know what I'm saying? I'm 43. I mean, I do think some people, when they get close to this age, they start to, think about
nervous.
that. But yeah, I'm not though. I'm not. I'm excited. I'm excited about the future. You know?
Man, and that's everything I gauge about you. I mean, your energy, your aura, your perspective on life. I've been able to pick a lot of those things up, and yeah, I would concur with what I've heard. I would definitely be in agreement with that. I heard somewhere that, one of the greatest honors of a son is to become his father's friend. And that's based on everything I've heard about you and your boys, man. It's my goodwill and my blessing that I will speak over you, man. It's that, you and your sons get to experience that greatest honor of like truly transitioning into manhood and becoming your father's friend.
I'm looking forward to it, man.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you. I appreciate that. That. And how old is your daughter now?
My daughter is 2.
Man. Ooh.
I know. Yeah, so I gotta.
This is smart though. This is so smart that you're doing this, man. You know what I'm saying?
Talk to me.
Like just spending time with other fathers and getting this guidance, man, just gonna make you a much better father. It's the kind of thing I wish I had done. I didn't do.
Yeah.
It's the kind of thing I wish I had done. There were a lot of mistakes that I made. I made a lot of mistakes, and I probably would have been able to fill the gaps that created those mistakes with intentional, wise moves. Had I spent more time having these kinds of conversations. So, good on you, man. This is smart.
I love to listen. All right, so we're about to get out of here, but before we do, can you tell them where they can find more of you?
Yeah. So, I started, really branding myself online back in like 2006. Before people really understood what this was all about. So basically, you could find me everywhere as Marcus Whitney. You could just Google it, or whatever major social network you're on. Like I own it, and then MarcusWhitney.com is my website, and definitely go there and sign up for my email newsletter. So I've been doing a bunch of different content. I'm doing podcasts. I love doing that. I'm guest appearing on other people's stuff. I'm doing guest speaking. But these weekly newsletters that I've been doing is really emerging to be like, I think the most transparent, most authentic thing I'm doing right now. And I can't explain why. I don't really understand why, but there's something about when Sunday hits and it's time for me to write it, and I just sit down and I'm reflecting on the week. And I can't come up with anything fake. You know what I'm saying? So like the only thing I can come up with is like what's really going on in my life.
What's true.
And so I would just say, if you really want like the most and I haven't like taken what I've written there and like put it on blogs or reproduced it anywhere. So like at the moment, the only place where you can get it is like you subscribe to the newsletter, and then you'll get it. It comes in every Monday morning. And the people who have subscribed, man, I get like a ton of text messages and emails, you know what I'm saying, like all throughout Monday, just, feedback from the newsletter. So I would just say, of everything I'm doing right now, for sure do that. And then that also tells you about the podcast and what else that I'm doing. But man, thank you for having me on the show.
Of course.
I've been watching what you're doing with this, and I'm super proud of you. Like this is, my big thesis. I talk to Des about this all the time, and my big thesis is like, if you are not doing this right now, you are losing. You know what I'm saying? If you are not creating content and branding, and like, if you're not doing that right now, you are losing. Period. End of story. And so like, I'm just so proud of what, like, it's so positive, it's so smart, it's gonna enrich you, it's gonna enrich other people. I love that you're incorporating hip hop culture in it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, and keeping it like really, really authentic
You know,
and
you just
accessible.
reminded me of something. But
Yeah,
go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah, yeah. So I love that you're doing that. Everything looks really good. It looks
you.
clean. So you know what I'm saying. Good on you, man. It's good.
Yeah. Hey, I gotta be honest, man. Like I was supposed to wrap like a minute ago, but listen, I've like sat with Marcus. This is just improv too. I've sat with you for several years now, and man, the knowledge that you give away for free is like just stupid, ridiculous. And I listened to the podcast, and I watched several of your YouTube videos, and even this newsletter, man. It was so compelling. I could tell. One of my acting coaches used to always say, "What comes from the heart goes to the heart." And your newsletter is really compelling, and it really resonates. So let me determine if I want you to drop something for us, or if I want to do the official exit.
It's your call.
How about you drop something for us?
All right. Let's come up with a topic.
Ooh, fatherhood.
Fatherhood.
It's got to be
All right.
fatherhood.
All right.
This is not rehearsed. I'm just.
No. This is off the top. All right. So here we go. 20 years ago, I was walking around with no hope. But then I realized fatherhood is so dope. Every day I look into my boy's eyes. I realize it's such a surprise for me to recognize what I've been given. Every day I thank God that I'm living for this reason. There's no treason. Every day is another beautiful season. So much wisdom coming through my dome. Every day I thank God that I got this home that I can protect my kids with. And I make money and ain't nothing funny about it. You understand, you doubt it, but you don't really know that I flow for the rest of y'all, so y'all will know that every day we gotta just go out there and slay and make the world understand this is our day, this is our way. We gotta create and make our own fate. Relate to what you're saying, bruh. You gotta understand every day I'm the man, and if you didn't understand that, then I command this. Listen to Marcus Whitney's universe. I'm the first to kick this verse ever. This is just not the most clever thing I've ever said. I'm kind of dead on it, but anyway, I ain't really read. I ain't pulled out no lead. I just said what came from the heart. This is the start. That's just some old freestyle
Hey.
stuff.
Hey, man, Marcus, I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, man.
Hey, I felt look, New York KRS-One all up in there, just late. It just felt like I was on somebody's
Boogie
stoop.
Down Productions.
Exactly. I was on the stoop
We'll
somewhere.
always get paid.
Hey, it doesn't get any better than this, y'all. You've been listening to Fatherhood is Dope, the podcast, man. I'm your host, Aaron McGee. I'm so glad that you decided to stick around, and if you stuck around this long, then you're really in for a treat. So make sure that you like, that you download, that you leave a review, and that you subscribe. We're celebrating men who have answered the call to fatherhood. You've heard an extensive conversation with me and Marcus Whitney. Y'all, let's just keep the movement growing and going. It's been real. Peace.
Peace.